My name is William Mayne. I'm the founder and managing director at Bullhouse Brewing Co and Bullhouse East over in East Belfast. So I started the business back in 2015, 2016. Before that, whenever I was still at uni, I went on a road trip around California with my brother in 2011. And the first weekend they took us to a brewery on a Friday afternoon, like 4 o'clock in an industrial estate in San Diego. There was just like the sense of community and all the workers from all the different businesses coming to have like a beer after work and enjoying each other's company inspired me, I think, in terms of what beer can do in terms of bringing people together. So then after that, asked my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, for a homebrew kit for Christmas, and then started homebrewing back in 2011. I grew up on a farm outside Eaton Ards, so every month I just saved a bit of money from my salary, did a bit of work on converting the shed into a brewery, and then in 2020, in the middle of lockdown, we moved into this location. So we moved from a 500 square foot shed to a 6,000 square foot warehouse. So we took a bounce back loan and just sort of decided to go for it and see how it would go. And as you can see, we're nearly at capacity here, so we're actually looking for another site at the minute to move to the next level. Well, I guess the inspiration at the start was to try and bring new styles of beer to market in Northern Ireland that weren't available on the shelves here. So like we started, the first ever beer that I brewed was an Imperial Stout called El Capitan, because there weren't really very many Imperial Stouts on the shelves out there. A lot of the breweries in Ireland, north and south, whenever they open up, start with like the holy trinity of a pale ale, a red ale and a stout. So we just wanted to do something a bit different and launch with a bit of a point of difference. Bullhouse East evolved without really planning that from the start. So the first thing, back in 2018, I was sort of looking, because we were getting too big for the 500 square foot original Bullhouse. So initially we were planning to open a brew pub, because we didn't really think we'd be able to get a pub license to open there. So we thought if we opened a brewery with a restaurant license, we could do food and beer at the same time. We ended up very luckily getting our liquor license through the courts during COVID. So it took 4 years from start to finish pretty much to get the bar open, but initially we were planning to do the brewery in there. And then in the meantime, in 2020, because we knew we weren't going to be able to do the brewery in that site, we then moved the brewery here to this site.
Yeah, so my name's Carson. I'm the general manager of Bullhouse East. I've been with Bullhouse since May 2022, so about a month before Bullhouse East opened. Yeah, I've cut my teeth in the craft beer scene in Leeds, in a place called Bundabust. Really, really cool kind of place, marriage of Indian street food and craft beer, and it really became a passion of mine. Moved back to Belfast in 2021, and then I saw the ad for Bullhouse come up one day, and I was like, yeah, let's go, and yeah, rest is history. The beer itself is a big draw for people, but I think what really makes Bullhouse unique, I think it's the space itself. I think it's the space that we occupy within Belfast, and particularly our little corner of Belfast. I think it's having such an open space for anyone to come. It doesn't really matter if you have never drank craft beer before. It doesn't matter if you drink nothing but Belgian lambics and big imperial stouts. This space is open for anyone, and it's a huge part of what makes Bullhouse is being community oriented, being community focused. So that's what I'd say would make it unique. I like to think it's not just a bar. I think it's the space that happens to serve really good beer.
Hi guys, so you've seen the brewery over at Boucher, so welcome to Bullhouse East, our taproom, permanent taproom here in Belfast.
So we've got 5 of our most popular beers here. We're going to crack them open, have a little taste, kind of talk to you about the history behind them. You've seen how they're made, so it's a good opportunity to kind of see what the finished products taste like.
So we'll start with Suds. Suds is one of our core range beers, so it's a 4.5% juicy pale ale. It's pretty hoppy, so it's dry hop, Citra, Idaho 7, Eldorado. So the flavor description on the back is pillowy, soft, fruity, and juicy.
Yeah, Suds is up there with our best-selling beers, along with Rolling Papers. People absolutely love it. It's just super fresh, easy going. It's a really good one for people who might not have really been into craft beer for a long time. It's a really accessible beer, but it's still so full of flavor.
4.5%. The Eldorado gives a nice spiciness to it. The 3 sort of pale core beers all have a base of a dry hop of Citra, which is one of our favorite hops, which gives a real citrusy tropical fruit note. But then this one is complemented with the spiciness of Eldorado. I guess a bit more of a orange peel type aroma from the Idaho 7.
Cheers.
Cheers.
the first thing I noticed immediately about Suds is the mouthfeel. As it says on the can, it really is super pillowy soft, and that comes from like oats, correct, in the brew. Yeah, and as you say, it kind of gives away to a tropical fruit, and then that kind of orange pith kind of on the end there.
Suds, in terms of the actual story behind Suds, I guess it sort of coincides with our general ethos about trying to bring people together. So the little tank with the little dog guy is basically, his tank is misfired and he's foaming out. He's shooting Suds and it says more hops, less palms. So hopefully that's a good sort of metaphor. And actually an interesting anecdote about Suds, it recently was named in the top 50 beers in the UK by the We Are Beer competition.
And Alan Titchmarsh is a massive fan. We also know that.
Yeah.
Here's to Alan.
Yes, cheers, Alan.
All right, so let's crack into road tripping. This is an extra pale ale. Road tripping for us is a really, really good beer for kind of specifically where we are, I think, because we're still at the beginning of the craft beer scene, really, in Northern Ireland. And a lot of people are still kind of discovering it. So road tripping is a really good one for us because even just kind of looking at it, you can tell that it's super, super light being an extra pale. It's a really good one for people who might be more used to lager and they kind of want to try something that isn't a lager, or God forbid, on the weekends where we run out of lager. We can move people over to road tripping and they're like, wow, this is really good, actually. I really enjoy this. Light, zippy, crisp, and Citra. This is an all Citra hopped beer, correct? So yeah, again, we love Citra, don't we? Should we give it a wee?
Yeah.
Give it a wee go?
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, the benefit of drinking the beers in Bullhouse East is they're all super fresh. As we said earlier, most of the beer in here is only a matter of weeks old. Yeah, I guess a little anecdote about road tripping is, one of the origin stories for starting the brewery was that road trip around California with my brother back in 2011. And sort of those West Coast bright, clear IPAs were the scene in the US at that stage. So I guess the illustration sort of harks back to that trip, even though we didn't have a camper van. But yeah, that's sort of where the inspiration came from.
Fantastic beer. Probably one of my favorites personally. It's easy, it's still got enough kind of body to it, but it's still super, super clean. And then that Citra, it's just really, really nice. The kind of bitter backbone, just enough citrus. I find it has a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y vibe to it as well, but I'm not sure if everyone agrees with me on that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. Depends on the mood of the brewer, I suppose.
So next up we have the legendary Merk Brew. So Merk Brew is a 6.5% New England IPA. So it's described on the can as juicy, hazy, fruity, and thick. Yeah, it's dry hopped with citrus, Simcoe, and Mosaic. So pretty much the three big hitter hops that everybody knows and everybody likes. So it's hard to go wrong with beer that's dry hopped with those three hops. So crack it open and do a bit of a taste, and then tell you a bit of a story about Merk Brew and how it got its name after. Like Suds, it's a bit hazier than road tripping. So again, we just like keeping all the fruity goodness in there. Yeah, we can have a taste.
Yeah, let's go. Cheers.
Cheers. So it's a bit sweeter on the nose, just from that extra, because 6.5%, you get a bit more malt. So a bit more malt backbone and body to it and sweetness coming through, but it's fairly well balanced.
It is, yeah, especially for a 6.5% IPA. It's up there, a couple of these, and you'll be well on your way, but you could easily get to that point. It's dangerous how smooth. It's almost like a smoothie, and you get loads of passion fruit and stone fruit in there, but it's so smooth. It's almost, if you told me this had lactose in it, which it does not, I would believe you, because it's kind of quite creamy as well. It is like a passion fruit milkshake almost, but still has that hop bitterness backbone backing it up to really give it that kind of body and remind you that it is a heavy hitter. After all.
Yeah, and we recently changed the malt on it to it used to be a bit lighter, or it had been for a while, so we changed the malt just to give it a bit more backbone to it. And that was after I was on a trip in the US last September and noticed that the beers in the US had a bit more body and backbone to them, and just thought might as well try and bring that to our beers as well. So yeah, in terms of the story of Merk Brew, Mick McDowell, who was the second employee at Bullhouse, used to drive an old banger Merk, which he had bought off another musician friend, and Mick was a musician as well. We ended up in 2018, we did a road trip, like a tap takeover tour of Ireland, so like a Bullhouse tour of Ireland. We ended up driving a van plus Mick's Merk. So the first stop was in Galway. We did a tap takeover at a bar called Caribou. And then second night we did a tap takeover in Dick Mac's in Dingle. The next morning after the tap takeover, Mick tried to start his car and his car wouldn't start, so the Merk was pretty much dead down in this car park in Dingle. And Mick had to sit on like a steel keg in the back of the van for the rest of the road trip, which then was Cork, Waterford, Wexford, Dublin, back to Belfast. But yeah, so it was a rough ride for Mick, unfortunately. But then the next week, he was able to basically get the car fixed by this mechanic down in Dingle, and yeah, made the long trip down on public transport and got the car back.
So the car just stayed in Dingle this whole time?
Stayed there. Yeah.
I hope he wasn't paying for parking.
No, it was actually in a car park, which the next day we didn't realise it was a car park that hosts a market. So then the next morning we came out of the Airbnb we were staying, and then the market had set up around the car.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so that's the story behind Merk Brew and sort of the old Mercedes, which has got grass growing around it.
Oh, bless. Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, so the Merk actually is a play on words. So Merk, as in M-E-R-K, because it's Merky.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Yeah, it's a tenuous pun, but I'll give it to you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Next, we're going to do Frank the Tank, which is another fan favourite. Been around for a good long time as well, I believe.
Just before we moved to the brewery.
Just 3 minutes of brewery, so around
2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, Frank the Tank is absolutely fantastic. People enjoy it a lot. We have a bit of a cult following for Frank the Tank. I feel bad. Sometimes it feels like Frank plays a second fiddle to Rolling Papers and Suds, but there are certainly people who come in here and they're like, no Frank the Tank, and then just they don't quite leave, but I feel like they want to. So yeah, it holds a very special place in the lineup. Single hop IPA as well, so it's really a showcase of Mosaic, which is one of my favorite hops personally. Mosaic is really good for those kind of more like tropical kind of fruity IPAs, but it still has like a lot of like body to it as well. We're saying thick, Mosaic, berry, and medley.
Yeah, berry medley.
Like berry. Oh, berry medley. Yeah. Okay, so you got 4 words, 3 sentiments. But yeah, let's crack her open and see.
Yeah, I think one of the things with Mosaic is that some lots and some years you can get more like onion and sort of cabbage and sort of vegetable flavors coming through. So we need to be careful whenever we're using the hops to make sure that we're not sitting on the hops for too long. We're getting any of that sort of undesirable flavors coming through.
Be good in a stew.
So some people, whenever they taste and smell Mosaic, that's what they smell, because everybody has a different flavor threshold for different compounds. So I think it was actually, so Frank probably came about in 2018. We got some new tanks in 2018. They were sort of like a big upgrade from the tanks that we had been using in the past, which were old, like stainless steel, like square tanks that didn't hold any pressure. So whenever we got these new cylindro-conical tanks, it meant we could finally do like those dry hop beers and not worry as much about oxidation. And it was like the first time having a proper setup. So one of the tanks was called Frank the Tank, and the other tank was called Cecil the Vessel. We actually did have a beer called Cecil the Vessel.
We should bring Cecil back.
What didn't sell as well. I think people, because of the old school like connotation of Frank the Tank as well, I think people like.
Frank the Tank was made in Frank the Tank.
Yeah.
So it's like a father-son kind of story we've got here.
Pretty much.
That's beautiful.
Frank the Tank gave birth to Frank the Tank.
Nice, gorgeous. Wow, what a world we live in. Right, well, let's see how he tastes.
Cheers.
Cheers. Just super juicy berry medley. What berries are in the medley?
People do get like red berries, I don't know, I guess a bit of raspberries and that sort of, you do get that sort of sweetness to it.
It's like jammy.
You either get that flavor or you get the onions.
Yeah, I haven't got the onions at any point in the couple of years I've been drinking this, so we're doing all right for sure. Bit of a less of a thick mouthfeel as something like Merk Brew, but that adds to kind of the refreshingness of it, I think. Comes in at 5% as well, so it's nice. It's strong enough to kind of have like that kind of oomph on the body, but not so strong that you're going to be falling over after a couple of them. So yet another really good summer beer, as a lot of these kind of are. I say all of these are pretty good, pretty made with the sunshine in mind, somewhat optimistically.
Yeah, if you can sit in the sunshine, at least the sun shines in the can. Yeah, I guess one of the things whenever we're doing beer tastings is we generally try and start at the lower ABV and work your way up to the higher ABV, because once you go to like Merk Brew with a really thick body, it's then hard. Once you go back down to like a 5% beer, it feels thin compared to the 6.5%, even though if you just try the 4% and then you went to the 5%.
It like builds up like gradually. Yeah, I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's a tropical fruit juice with hops and alcohol. What else could you ask for?
I think that's something people don't understand whenever they sometimes smell the beers or taste the beers. They think there's actual fruit in the beer because they don't understand how you can get such a fruit flavor into the beer, but it's the same flavor compounds that you get from actual fruit are also present in the hops. I think you're getting exactly the same fruit compounds that are in those berries. So the flavor compounds are the same. So whenever you smell it and taste it, it tastes exactly like the actual fruit, even though there's no fruit in it.
Yeah, which is amazing. It just really speaks to the brewing process that this is one hop in here and it's giving you all of that as well. It's not hiding behind anything else, not being supported by anything else. Of course, there's other things in the brewing process, the yeast, the malt, etc. But just from the hop and the flavor profile, it's amazing that we can get all this juiciness just out of one little hop, which is amazing. Really, really good.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, so in terms of where the beer ends up, at the minute we sell into, like, obviously Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. GB is our primary markets. About 40% of our beer goes across to GB. And then we also sell in Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, and a little bit in France and Spain from time to time as well. And apart from that, obviously in Bullhouse East we sell about 30% of our beer. So I guess if we take that out of Northern Ireland, only 5% of our beer goes elsewhere in Northern Ireland. So I think for most small businesses, you need to nail your local market first. And I think one of the challenges that local breweries in Northern Ireland face and why the industry is so small here is because the local market's pretty much cut off. So that's why you have to export from the start, which is challenging if you're a small independent business. Yeah, so in terms of the production process for making beer, it's pretty simple. Beer's been made for centuries. There's 4 main ingredients. So water is primary ingredient, is over 90% of beer is water. Essentially, the first stage is just heating a lot of water up overnight. So we just heat it up in a big hot water tank, essentially. The second stage, then you add your malted barley to the hot water. The malted barley contains starch, which can be broken down into sugar during the mashing stage. So that's called mashing. So it's basically you add a load of porridge, malted barley into hot water and create a big porridge. The enzymes that are already present in the malt break down the starch into sugar, and the temperature at which you mash will dictate what sort of sugars are converted by the enzymes. So temperature at that stage is crucial. Then the next stage is you transfer it into the kettle, which, as you can imagine, you just boil it up. So you boil it to basically sterilize the product, but also to add hops at that stage. By adding the hops when the beer is being boiled, you can extract bitterness from the hops if you add them at the start of the boil. And then if you add them towards the end of the boil, you'll get aroma and flavor compounds that are retained within the beer. After it's been boiled, you want to cool it down as quickly as possible from 100 degrees to pretty much 20 degrees for most of our beers. So we produce ale, which means we add yeast, which ferments on top of the beer, and that converts the sugars that we've got from our mash into carbon dioxide and alcohol. And then further down the stage, we generally add more hops in a process called dry hopping, which is basically just adding the hops into the fermented beer at that stage. Once it's been fermented and you've crashed the temperature down from 20 degrees gradually down to about maybe less than 2 degrees, as close to freezing as possible without freezing the beer. And that means the CO2 that's in the tank will basically be absorbed into the liquid and start to give you some fizz in the beer. And then you can add more CO2. At that stage, it's easier for CO2 to be absorbed into liquid at a cold temperature, so that's why you do it at a cold temperature. After it's been carbonated and it's ready to package, we package it then into cans and kegs, depending on the beer and the format that we're going for. And then at that stage, it goes on a pallet and either ends up in Bullhouse East or around Europe. So the whole process from start to finish takes about 3 weeks. We focus on styles that are easier to drink, generally lower ABV, so sessionable strength. So in beer terms, that means between sort of 4 and 5.5%. We try and focus on flavoursome products that have high impact in terms of flavour, but don't leave you end up on the floor. So you can have a few and still have a nice, relaxed conversation. So I guess to do that, we bring in hops from the Pacific Northwest, so like New World hops from the US and from Australasia as well. Something that we've realized that we can do better than any of the big industrial beer producers is provide those really hoppy, fresh flavors. Because our route to market is quite short, we're not distributing through like big, long supply chains. So the beer that we're selling is generally super fresh, consumed within a couple of months of leaving the brewery.
I think there can be an expectation that a craft beer place opening somewhere is going to be exclusive. It's really important for us that that isn't the case. We're fully aware of where we are in the city, and we are really, really interested in having this be a space for anyone to come and enjoy. We try to do that through our events, different collaborations with local businesses, different kind of people, artists, different breweries as well on the brewery side for collaborations. We also have a charity partner each year that we partner with who is based in the local area and is doing really good work for the local area. I think the best way to experience Bullhouse East is to kind of get down when we have something going on. We have like loads of events that we run every single month. We have loads of stuff here that I think appeals to a wide audience between food and drink and experiences. I think there's something for everyone to kind of enjoy. My favorite beers, personally, you can catch me drinking a road tripping at any point in the week. Rolling Papers is also fantastic. Really nice big hazy IPA. That's probably our best seller by far. It's really, really hard to even keep it in stock some weeks. Yeah, in terms of other offerings, we've got food. Vidi Pizzeria are a fantastic local pizza business. They are a third-party business, and so we kind of give them this space and they fire out amazing Neapolitan-style pizzas. My personal favorite is the Milano. I am a sucker for hot honey, so it makes sense. We try and keep it fresh as well. Like, we've got our own products, which we have, that are reliable, and you can come in and you can be guaranteed that you're going to get a certain Bullhouse beer. We try and have loads of space for guests and international breweries. So in our fridges, you'll find all of our classics Bullhouse stuff, but you'll also find a wealth of UK, European, American breweries in there as well.
So in terms of what we do at Bullhouse to try and reduce our impact, whenever you're fermenting beer, it gives off a lot of CO2, and CO2 is used a lot in the production process. So one thing that we do that most breweries don't is that we ferment, condition and carbonate and package from the same tank. So that means we're eliminating any tank-to-tank transfers. So something we are looking at the minute is whether we can send our hop debris and yeast debris into an anaerobic digester to be converted into green energy rather than just going down the drain. So our sort of purpose is now morphed into that initial purpose that we saw in California, which is how does beer, the transformative effect that beer can have in terms of bringing communities together. And then that's why we opened Bullhouse East over in East Belfast, and sort of trying to create a neutral venue that doesn't matter, background, beliefs, whatever you want. You can come and feel welcome and share a beer, because it's sort of such a simple product that people just like having a beer and having a chat together. Yeah, so we've tried some new beers, some more historic beers, but it doesn't get too much more historic than Small Axe. So it was a third ever beer brewed at Bullhouse. I think I mentioned it earlier. After El Capitan and Ubertuber, which is the Comfort Potato Saison, Small Axe was the third ever beer, which was again sort of to try and bring a beer with American hops onto the market in Northern Ireland, where there was, back in 2016, there wasn't a huge amount of variety of sort of US hopped beers. Small Axe has been around since then, and it still remains like a pretty popular.
Similar to Frank, it definitely has that kind of cult following, people who will not drink anything else, and it's clear to see why. Similar to road tripping, it's lower ABV, but not so similar to road tripping. It gives what you were just talking about, those kind of like bigger, kind of bolder American kind of hop flavors and the kind of haziness as well. So yeah, it's a really kind of like best of both worlds. If you just want something light, easygoing, a reliable classic as well. With Small Axe, you know what you're getting. It's been tried and tested for so long.
Yeah, and I guess it's a bit of a hybrid between like a West Coast and New England. So it looks like a New England which basically means it's lower bitterness. It's got more of the juiciness and sort of those forward flavours, but it's also dry hopped with Mosaic, which is the same as Frank, but also Chinook, which is one of those classic sea hops from the West Coast, which is used predominantly in West Coast IPAs.
Gives it that really nice kind of bitter,
danky, piney flavour going on. So still pretty easy drinking at 4.3%. So we'll crack it open and give it a taste.
A customer on the bar asked me if this was named after the Bob Marley song. I didn't have an answer for them. Is it?
Yes.
Is?
Yeah.
So I did say, well, knowing our owner Willie, probably.
But it's there's a good story to it. So Small Axe, the song, it was an early Bob Marley song about him trying to break into sell to independent record labels in Jamaica, because whenever he first started out, there was 3 big record labels that you basically had to sell to. So it was basically about the Small Axe chopping down the big tree, like the big 3 record labels. I thought it was quite an apt song or reference for the Northern Irish beer industry, which is pretty much dominated by 99% of taps in bars in Northern Ireland are supplied by 4 multinational producers. I guess it's our version of trying to chop down the big 4.
Yeah, so yeah, that's I'm learning this now. I did not know that. Not a huge Bob Marley fan musically, but also, yeah, just learning that is probably one of the more explicit. It's very subtle, but it's more of a kind of explicit kind of mission statements of Bullhouse, I suppose. Is kind of shaking things up and kind of looking at and questioning the status quo of brewing and hospitality in Northern Ireland. So that's actually really cool to learn. Thank you. Anyway, should we every day, every single day. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, straight away on the nose, you get a bit more of that sort of dankness coming through from the Chinook, compared to just the pure Mosaic, which you get from France. Not too many of these.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and then that's what you get as well. Super light, super fresh. When you get that kind of fruitiness coming up, but then your palate kind of gets washed over with that kind of more kind of piney, kind of resinous dankness that you would expect from Chinook and West Coast hops. Even color-wise as well, it's got that nice kind of orange hue that I would kind of associate with the West Coast. Yeah, but still obviously hazy, just like a New England IPA. So yeah, I think it's good to have those beers because so often you can get one that goes so far in one direction, so far in the other. But for people like me who kind of likes both equally, it's nice to have something that kind of toes that line quite well. But again, is also really sessionable. I think session IPAs in general are really popular for a reason. Not everyone wants to go out to get really drunk. Some people just want to go out, be able to have a good few over a session, if you will.
People are always surprised whenever they learn that session IPA just means you can have a session on it.
Yeah, exactly. They are. But also, I think it's important because so often you either have something that you can have a session on, or you have flavor. You have big amounts of flavor. So it's just really important to have something that just because you might not want to drink quite as much or be quite as drunk, doesn't mean that you should lose out on all the exciting flavors that craft beer has to offer.
That's true. And I think one other thing that people ask is has the recipe evolved over time since 2016? And I like to say no, but it's not true if you say no. I think with everything you try and evolve over time, and every time we brew a beer, we sort of review it and do a tasting panel at the brewery and decide, what was good about it, if we tweak one thing at a time, even the water profile, water chemistry. We've moved the brewery from the farm to Belfast, so we changed our water source. So straight away, there's going to be differences there from the original recipe.
Yeah, and you can do these things. You can build on and help something evolve without taking away the core of what makes it what it is. And I think the guys at the brewery have been really, really successful in doing that. Staying true to what makes these beers, whilst also kind of pushing the envelope. And there's always something to learn. You can always get better. While still respecting kind of where you came from. And I think Small Axe is a really, really good example of that. Small Axe today tastes, I noticed the differences from when I first tried it, but it's still unmistakably the same beer. It's just elevated in certain ways, you know what I mean? And I think the day we stop doing that will be a sad day, to be honest with you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. Well, thanks very much for watching the video. Hope it was informative. If you learned anything from the video, hopefully you learn to support your local independent brewery and your local independent bars. If you want to learn any more about Bullhouse, you can do so at our website, where you can also buy the freshest beer delivered straight to your house. So that's bullhousebreweryco.com.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram at Bullhouse East, as well as the brewery at Bullhouse Brewery Co. If you're in the area, come on down. We've got all the beers we tried today and more in the fridges and on tap. And just remember, yes, support local. Pubs are really important for the local community. So wherever you are in the world, make sure you're going to your local and supporting them. Thank you.